have your attention, please, we'll get started. If everybody will rise. Call our meeting to order, and we'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Ogburn if he'll lead us in our invocation.
Bow your heads. Our Heavenly Father, be with us tonight as we gather here to be about this business of the community. We ask for your guidance and your hand on these proceedings. We ask that you bless this nation, this country, be with our armed forces who are in harm's way. Bring them home safely to their families. We pray that this community may prosper and that all that are in it may receive thy blessing. We ask this in thy name, for thy sake. Amen.
Amen. Remain standing, if you will, and I'm going to ask our Girl Scout troop 614, and we'll identify these individually in just a moment, if they'll come forward and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Thank their leaders too for being here with them. Without good dedicated leaders and parents, they couldn't be doing this, so we thank you for bringing them and being with us. Okay, we're going to the approval of the agenda. We have some changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda. Does anyone have any? I have a couple. I'm asking under consent agenda that we add the special events that has been placed before you with the back-to-school event with the Jubilee Church and the Hunting and Fishing Outfitters, both on August the 20th. I'd ask you to add that under consent agenda for your consideration. And also, we have an item number 6 I'd like to add for a grant request from the Governor Highways Commission on behalf of Chief Scott. We'll add that under number 6. That is under new business, correct? Is any other changes or additions that anyone would like to add or make? If not, do I hear a motion to the changes in the approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The agenda stands as corrected and amended. Do we have any presentation and reports for us tonight to consider? Not aware of any reports. We'll move to the next item of public hearings. Item 1, we have a rezoning petition request of 17.93 acres, a portion of 38.98 acre tract of land located on the south side of US 70 Business Highway East from a B3 to an R20A. Mr. Embler, we'll open up our public hearing.
To give you a little bit of background on this rezoning request, when we took in the additional ETJ from the county a couple of years ago, we rolled over the county zoning. The county had it zoned B3, so we just reflected that within our zoning. So what this request is, as well as the second request, is to zone back to R20A, which is residential agricultural. The property considered for rezoning is a 17.93 acre portion of a 38.9 acre tract of land, approximately 1,600 linear feet of frontage on US 70 Business East. The property is currently being used for farm pasture and no structures currently exist within its borders. The subject property does not appear to be located within a flood-prone area. The current property owner is requesting the property to be rezoned to the R20A Residential Agricultural Zoning District. If the request is approved, all permitted uses within the R20A zoning district may be considered for future approval, including single-family dwellings and farm structures. The planning staff in its analysis has determined that the zoning petition is in compliance with all applicable plans and policies of the town of Smithfield. Our comprehensive plan shows this to be residential agricultural. The zoning petition is compatible with established neighborhood patterns of the surrounding area. The US 70 Business Highway East Corridor is predominantly comprised of residential agricultural uses. The rezoning petition is compatible with the changing neighborhood conditions that have not warranted rezoning. The property is currently zoned R28. The adjacent property to the rear is currently zoned R20A. Rezoning the property to R20A will not create any non-conforming uses. The rezoning request is in the community's interest. Rezoning the property to the R20A zoning district should not have any negative impacts on the community at large. Fifth item, the request does not constitute spot zoning. It is unlikely that an argument for spot zoning could be made since a larger portion of the property is already zoned R20A. Present regulations deny, item 6, present regulations deny or restrict the economic use of the property. The current zoning district does not deny economic use of the property, but does allow for uses the current owner is not interested in pursuing. In other words, it allows for commercial, but the owner is not interested in pursuing that. 7, the availability of public services allows consideration of this zoning request. The property has adequate road frontage to accommodate the agricultural endeavors. Number 8, physical characteristics of the site prohibit development under present regulations. The property is currently zoned B3. Downzoning to the proposed R20A zoning district will limit the commercial uses that can be permitted without first rezoning back to a commercial zoning district. The planning board at its July 7th meeting unanimously voted to recommend approval of the rezoning request, and the town council is now asked to review the petition and make a decision for rezoning of the 23.86 acre portion of the 56 acre tract of land from B3 zoning to R20A.
Any questions for Mr. Embler? Do we have anyone wish to be heard in this public hearing that's here with us tonight? If you would, please, sir, just stand for your, and come forward and mention your name for the clerk, if you would. Richard. Okay, come on around so everybody can hear if you don't mind. Thank you.
This property has been farmed and has been used for agricultural use for many, many, many years, tens, maybe since the 50s, 40s, 30s, I don't know. But our plans are to continue to use this for agricultural use, strictly for that. So,
Okay. Anybody have any questions to the gentleman? Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Having no questions, are there any discussions regarding the rezoning? If not, do I have a motion that we allow the rezoning?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we rezone this tract from B3 to R20A.
Second. A motion and a second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries forward. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Item number 2, rezoning petition request for 23.86 acre portion of a 56 acre tract of land located on the northwest and the southwest side of the intersection of US 70 Business Highway East and Yeverton Grove Road from a B3 to an R20A. Mr. Embler?
Well, if I had opened my packet to the correct page, I just read the finding of facts for the second tract instead of the first. However, they are the same. I apologize for that. But you just heard the second hearing, or the findings that I presented to you. The first action is basically it's an additional piece of land. It's 17.93 acre portion of a 38.9 acre tract that is very similarly configured to the other, and all the findings are the same for that. So at the planning board meeting Last month, they took it under consideration and unanimously recommended approval of the rezoning request, and the town council is now asked to do the same.
Any questions for Mr. Embler on this rezoning request? Anyone else from the audience wish to be heard? Not, do I have a motion on this rezoning request?
Motion.
Second. Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Mr. Embler. We move to a section of citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience who wishes to be heard, now's the time. Yes, sir, come forward if you will. If you'll please state your name and address for us, we appreciate it.
My name is Dennis Williams, 908 2nd Avenue, Smithfield, North Carolina. And I would ask that, I went to the office to ask that I be put on the agenda, and I was told that I would not have to, that the council will be able to make some decisions and act upon my request for my community. I'm going to pass out, so the gentleman will have a copy, and I'll make this brief by reading over what I have here. It says, Dennis Williams, Sr., 908 2nd Avenue, Smithfield, North Carolina, August the 2nd, 2011. All city council members, I come before you tonight to bring several issues to you that are affecting our community. As a resident at this address, 908 2nd Avenue, we are one of the oldest families in this community, going back over 63 years. In the 1990s, when the council voted to bring natural gas into the city of Smithfield, the company which provided the services agreed that over a period of time, they would provide services to all the residents of Smithfield. To this date, we, the residents of this area, have not been supplied with natural gas. We are asking that the council ask the now natural gas provider to complete the project that was never done. The gas lines were originally brought into the projects at the ball field and stopped. Then it was run down Martin Luther King Boulevard to Brogdon Road. It was run from 70 Business down Highway 301 South past the food line. It left our entire community, and I emphasize entire community, from the railroad tracks to Martin Luther King Boulevard without natural gas services. We were purposely redlined in the effort to supply natural gas to the town. It would be virtually impossible to omit only this section of the town of Smithfield unless it was done intentionally. We have been through the process of getting several petitions signed by the residents, but to be told by the gas supplier that it's not enough. I, as one of the oldest residents, not in natural age, but the age of the house, and we are the original builders of this home, should not be penalized and have to buy a much more expensive product. My question to the council would be, when does this community in which I live become as much a part of the city of Smithfield and receive benefits? We pay the same taxes as the other residents, but we are deprived of one of the benefits that can save us money. With the increased cost of electric from the town, we need to do as the town does and save where we can. I know that the majority of you were not on the council at the time, but I'm asking you at this time to make a correction in omitting us. It has been 20-plus years, and still we do not have the most cost-saving feature that the town has to offer its residents. Another issue is the increased cost of electric. Our electric costs should not be $300 and greater per month in the square footage of the homes that we have. If in fact the problem is the middleman, if there is one between the town of Smithfield and Progress Energy, then it would be more economical for the residents of the entire town of Smithfield and the town of Smithfield to, in fact, break the contract and enter into direct negotiations with Progress Energy. We shall not be bound by any contract that is having a devastating effect on the residents of this town. The cost of electric is causing potential stable residents to move out into the county where the utility cost is less than $200 per month in peak usage. If not corrected, we will begin to lose more taxpayers in the town of Smithfield and potentially leave the town of Smithfield with less revenue. Another very pressing issue is the drainage. Since the runoff and overflow for the pottery and the new restaurant that they put over there on 70 has moved the holding pond in our community, it leaves us vulnerable to flooding in case of a major storm. There are no drainage ditches anywhere in that area that can accommodate a large influx of water. We are asking that the town seek funding for a covered drainage that would move the water from our community to the Neuse River, thereby not leaving us to flooding in order to keep the pottery area from flooding. Our final issue is curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. We have curbs and gutters from West Street down 2nd Avenue to Midway Street, then stopped. From Midway Street to Brogdon Road, we have no curbs and guttering. We know that it was supposed to be done originally, but the funding was moved to another section of town. We are asking that you seek funding to give us these infrastructure improvements. We are paying for an aquatic center, but we do not have the necessary infrastructure improvements to keep our community safe and economically inviting to new possible home builders and renovators. It is our request that you consider these proposals and act upon them. Sincerely, Dennis Williams, Sr. Did each one get a copy?
Yes, sir. We thank you very much, and we'll, Mr. Manager, if I can, if you will get in touch with Mr. Williams and talk over some of these points and see what we can do to assist in the ways we can.
Mr. Mayor, I have something to say.
Yes, sir.
I was on this board when the gas companies came and asked permission to come into the town of Smithfield. And we particularly asked, I and James Barber both asked would we all get it, and they promised that we'd get it. And they proceed to come in, and every time when they got where they wanted to go, it seems that they forgot to promise. So I'd like to enter a motion right now for the town of Smithfield to contact the gas company and demand, not just asking, demand that they come and complete the job to run gas lines down East Street, 3rd Avenue, 2nd Avenue, West Street, Blunt Street, Ward Street, Broadway Street, Rand Street, and Martin Street. This is the whole community that has been left out. Now they, and where it was intentional or not, but it's left out. And we have been waiting patiently. Now it's the town, I believe, to step up and tell them, because when we said that we would, it was all right for the gas companies to come in, they promised to put it in every neighborhood, bring it. And so what we need to do is to have the gas lines in the street in front of the houses so the people can select where they want to put the gas, get the gas in. And they need to be done immediately in any other area of East Smithfield. And that's a motion I'm making.
I'll second that.
Third.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, or?
I would ask that we make sure that there's no other areas of town that haven't been excluded from the natural gas line, and make sure that we ask the gas company to finish putting the line down in those areas as well.
And that's immediately. We're talking about immediately, not later on. So if they ask, we need to make sure, because it's been probably since 1993, 92 or 93, they could have already done it by now.
Mr. Williams, do you accept Mr. Crocker's addition.
Yeah.
As a friendly, friendly addition to your
Incorporate it
motion.
all so that when we notify them, we tell them that they need to come back and do what they promised.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Have we got any leverage at all on them folks?
I would suggest that we can make a strong recommendation to finish the job. As to any regulatory requirements over them, probably not. But I think they would want to participate in the spirit of participation for our community, since we are a large provider. You know, we would probably want to work with us, I'm sure.
And now, make sure you add these streets that I put down and any more, so that they won't be mistaken and think that there won't be no mistake about it.
Mr. Williams, if you can make sure the clerk has those
I'll
streets at
make
the end
sure.
of our meeting, I would appreciate it. Okay? Anyone else under citizen comment wish to be heard? Come forward, Mr. Wiggs. Most of us know you, Mr. Wiggs, but please state your name for the record, please, and your address.
I'm Billy Wiggs, live out in Rose Manor. I'm a citizen of the county all of my 60 years plus. I'm not going to say how many that plus amounts, but it's 60 plus. You know, we're always trying to put a pleasant image here within the city of Smithfield to welcome visitors, to welcome newcomers that plan to reside here. We welcomed a new police chief not too many years ago, and also they've become good citizens and all. So I would like to impress upon the councilman tonight, and I'd like to congratulate each one of you for the way that you present yourself this evening. You're dressed as businessmen who are respected within the community, and I appreciate that, and hope all the citizens of our lovely town do likewise. My comment is, recently I saw a vehicle owned by the town of Smithfield, rather, down at the water facilities in that office complex area that has code enforcement. Now, the key part of the second word there is force, code enforcement. To me, that sounds like you're going to make me do whatever that code says. You're not going to ask me, you're going to make me, force me to do it. Whereas my comment is, why don't we try to make this a little bit milder comment, or writing along the side of the vehicle that says code compliance. Yeah, I'll be glad to do that. I'll comply with that regulation or code or whatever it is. So I would like to recommend to whoever has the authority, whatever, now or in the near future, to change from the word enforcement to compliance. Isn't that a trivia thing? But anyhow, to me, comply means, hey, we'll get along well together. But if you force me to do something, man, I'm going to resist. So that was my comments tonight. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. We'll sure take it under advisement. Anyone else under citizen comments wish to be heard?
I have one more thing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams.
I've been wrestling this year. It's with our beautification. And the DNA transmission on Brightleaf Boulevard and Lee Street, the corner. On the Lee Street side where you go toward Sandy Run, they leave tires, they leave trash, and whatever on the side of the building the whole weekend. I mean, we have an ordinance that business is supposed to have a trash container. There's a trash container out there, but it don't seem to be, don't appear to be theirs. It appear to be someone in the other part of the building. What I need to do, what I need is this place to be, the old tires and the garbage need to be taken up, and it need to look just like a business. And next is the Rockside Tire Company on Brightleaf Boulevard. It's 101 right here. They've got, I don't know, a huge amount of old tires, worn out tires stacked behind the building. That's a fire hazard. I mean, but where's our code enforcer? The person that's supposed to be looking out for these things, you know, we have all these issues, and the citizens come and say, well, hey, why don't you do something? And nobody seems to be working with the town to make sure that the town is improved. Now, we have another problem over at Core. I mean, that's, and, you know, we continue to talk, but, you know, nothing is done. Now, we need to get serious about these things. I mean, it's the beautification of the town, and when people come into town, they see all these things, and, you know, I don't care how good we present ourselves, they think that, you know, we're just trashy people.
Well,
And it helps everyone if we, and we're not trying to put strain on anyone, but business people that take care of their businesses, you know, take pride in their business, and then some that don't, we got to encourage those that don't to step up to the plate. And this is what need to be done immediately.
okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else on that topic?
Yeah, I'd like to say something about the code compliance or code enforcement, whatever we want to call it. It's my understanding, Mayor, that we are not doing code enforcement anymore unless there's a complaint. And our previous town manager saw fit to stop that. And I also understand that the town manager saw fit to move that code enforcement person into another department. And I would ask that Richard look at the feasibility of moving that gentleman back into the planning department and start doing what he was hired to do, which is code enforcement, code compliance, whatever you want to call it. But I would ask that, and I don't know what the other council will feel about that. I don't know whether I need to make a motion, but I don't need to get into personnel. But that gentleman was hired to do code enforcement based on what I know. He is in a structure of a salary that equates to that, but he is not in that position, and we basically have no code enforcement unless there is a complaint. And I would ask that Richard, our acting town manager, review that and look at the feasibility of getting somebody back out there to do code enforcement.
Okay. Anyone else on that subject? Duly noted, Mr. Williams, on those locations. I stopped at the one up here at Lee Street this morning myself, and I counted about 25 stacks of tires that were probably 12 foot tall each down the side of the building, and tried to have a conversation with the individual, but I don't speak Spanish too well, and he don't speak English too well, so we didn't communicate too well. But if that is the wish of the board, I think that the planning department as well as the code enforcement will enforce the code as long as the board supports the code and the enforcement that we do. And that's where we need to ensure that we do that. And,
Well, Mr. Mayor,
And it doesn't just need to be particular codes.
right.
If it's the code, whether it's signage or landscape issues or whatever, if it's in the code and it's supposed to be enforcement, then I would say that be enforced.
you know, we have enough codes and to take care of all of these. All we need to do is to just make sure they carry it out. You know, and not only that, we need to welcome anyone to Smithfield that want to start a business. We should go bend over backwards to try to help them get the business. But whenever they do, we need to let them know that they need to work with the town of Smithfield to keep it looking in a manner where other people who want to come and join in next door to them if necessary with their business and have no fear that, you know, something's going to happen. You know, we want to have a uplifting, and this is just not happening here in my community.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may add one more comment to the code enforcement. With that being said, stated this several months ago, is that it's been several years since we drafted our comprehensive land ordinance, at which time I still have it in my car. And Mr. Emily, I think you remember the meeting that we had where I had about 50-plus sticky notes on it, if not more. I think it's time that we look at that, and if adjustments need to be made to assist with what Mr. Williams was talking about, if things need to be tweaked a little bit to make them more business-friendly, we need to look at that, because it has been in existence for how long, Paul? Okay, so we've had a good amount of time that it's been in force, and we probably have some pros and cons and some recommendations, not only from citizens but from business owners, that maybe we can start taking a look at, and maybe if you have any recommendations and so forth. Not sure that we can afford right now going out and hiring an agency to come in and take a look at it, but if there are some quick fixes that we can do with your experience over the past 3 years, I think we should definitely start looking at that.
Okay. We will begin, Mr. Richard has got this down, and we will begin the starting of that and ensure that we look at the feasibility of moving the code enforcement back to planning, but, oh, excuse me.
Could I just ask
Sure.
that when Andy and Paul get together, could that include the appearance commission as well?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I need to exactly really meet with him, but yeah, I'd recommend that. If there are some recommendations from the appearance commission, I would say that we definitely seek the comments from that board as well.
Okay.
I just about would like the Appearance Commission probably to make some kind of little statement each meeting night, about what.
The two tire companies are on our list of problematic areas, and there will be discussed this month. So you just beat us to the punch.
Okay.
We're with you.
Any other discussion on the code enforcement? I think we have the direction of the board, and we'll proceed forward. Okay. Are any other citizens' comments? I think we're still there. If not, do I have a motion on the consent agenda with the addition that was added?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda has been approved. To the new business, the police department accreditation request. Chief Scott, if you'll come forward, please. While the chief is coming forward, I believe you've been given a copy of this request from the chief at your place, or sent to you. Or email, excuse me, to you. Okay. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me a few moments this evening to discuss what is in front of you, a proposal for the police department to undertake a process known as national accreditation. During my first council meeting here with all of you, I was tasked with the responsibility of coming up with a plan to deal with significant crime issues that were in the town of Smithfield. During the second meeting, we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we did, what we had to work with, and some of the issues that we were facing. Throughout the calendar year 2010, your police department has done an excellent job working with the community and the citizens of this community to combat crime throughout the town. So much so that in 2010, this town saw the largest decrease in reported crimes of any community in North Carolina. Any community. We saw a 16.5% decrease in crime. We have community-oriented policing at this point in full swing. We have organized neighborhoods. We're meeting with those neighborhoods as needed. We're getting citizens' input. We're getting citizen help. We have increased communication. Last year, we had an arson incident in South Smithfield that was a problem for a lot of people. A lot of people were concerned, scared. The communication networks that we set up during our community policing meetings assisted us in getting a large group of people together very quickly to discuss how to best deal with that issue. And after that meeting, to date, we have yet to have another arson. Now, it's time for your police department to move itself forward again. During the budget sessions of 2010, 2011, we discussed the possibility of creating funding to accredit your police department. At that time, the wisdom of the council was not to proceed with that, and I think that was a good choice at that time. We had a lot of things going, but since that time, we have accomplished a lot. Now it's time for us to sit down and reinvent some of the way that we do things, some of the ways that we provide service to the community. Accreditation will help us create a set of standards. It's not the Mike Scott standard, not the Ryan Shepard standard, but a standard set down by the 4 best agencies in the United States for advising law enforcement policy and procedure. Those organizations being the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, National Sheriff's Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum. Now, this is not a cheap process, but neither is it a cheap process to accredit a university or a hospital. And I doubt we would want to send our children or our families to a hospital that wasn't accredited or a university that didn't have a national accreditation. Your police department should be no less. We have much more authority than any of those, and we should be held to the highest standard possible by everyone. Accreditation is a 3-year process. It forces us to reevaluate everything we do. It also creates a much better position for the town should we be faced with any type of a lawsuit for any type of service that we deliver, whether it's use of force or a pursuit that we get engaged in that doesn't turn out as we had hoped, or some other issue that might occur. It also creates, once we are accredited, a savings to our liability coverage, which will pay for about 2/3 of the continued accreditation from year to year. There are 10 law enforcement agencies in North Carolina our size that are currently accredited. 10, that's all. And they are the best law enforcement agencies the state has to offer. We should be one of those 10, or we should be number 11. So my request here for all of you this evening is to allow us to move forward with that process. It's a costly process. It's going to cost us about $10,400 to undertake the process. But we have funding available through forfeiture proceeds to pay for all of that, so no taxpayer dollars have to be used. It's going to cost us another $1,300 to train someone to properly go through the process for us for the next 3 years. We also have money for that. I'm asking for permission to use that money so that we can make ourselves better and we can continue moving this police department forward for the next 3 years. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions for the chief?
Sounds like a win-win to me.
I believe it is.
Anyone else?
Will you be using this forfeiture money each year?
No. The 3-year cost of accreditation is $10,400. That's for the 3 years. So we have that money now. We have it to pay. We'll pay it in one lump sum and be done with it. We have the money now to pay for the training. We can pay that and be done with it. There'll be no other expenditures until the 3 years is over, unless we see something through the accreditation process that needs to be updated or changed.
At the end of that 3 years, will you go back to, for lack of a better word, you're going to reaccredit yourself? So
Yes.
Will you do the same way again with forfeiture money?
At that time, we're talking about a net cost to the town of about $1,500 a year. We're not talking about a lot of money to maintain an accredited agency. But if we have forfeiture money available to us, then that would be a justified expense.
So this is not going to be, at the end of 3 years, become a operational recurring expense.
It'll be an operational reoccurring expense every year of about $1,500.
What is that money used for? Is that a dues you pay or for
It
training?
is, what that pays for is the continual updates of policy and procedure, as well as another on-site assessment in 3 years, where 2 individuals will come from God knows where in this country to assess us, to evaluate the type of service we are delivering, to make sure we are in accordance with all 436 policies and procedures that we say we're doing. That'll pay for all of that.
So I heard you say $1,500 a year. Is that the total cost per year for the renewal? Or
Yes.
Is that
Well,
what
no.
the town will pay outside of the forfeiture money?
The total cost for renewal is $3,900, but we'll have a $2,400 savings in liability coverage once we're accredited. So you have the net that I'm talking about,
All right. Well, that's if we get that
if we get accredited.
$2,400 credit.
We already have had confirmation from the league that we would get that money once we're accredited, that savings. I think the packet that I sent you had an email to that effect.
Yeah, I saw that, but I guess my question is, and my point is that just like any other thing, the league's insurance rates are looked at annually. And annually, their rates could change. So even though we may get a credit, the league could change their insurance rates and go up. So therefore, we would not be realizing, or the potential that we not realize, a $2,400 credit. I just want to make sure that the council understands that yes, the league may give a credit for insurance purposes, but just like any other insurance company, their rates could go up at any time, and therefore it would not be a $2,400. So just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yep.
You know.
I would add this as well, in response to that. I led an agency through accreditation process, became accredited. We had a federal lawsuit following that accreditation for use of force. I represented our agency throughout those proceedings in federal court. When I went into the deposition, the attorney had a stack of papers about half again this big sitting in front of him to ask me questions. He went through the normal stuff, your name, how long you've been with the agency, what's your education, what's your position, how long have you done everything. After we got through all that, his next question was, is your agency nationally accredited? I said, yes, it is. He said, who's the accrediting organization? And I explained that to him. He then took about this much of his papers and he went like this. He no longer needed to ask me those questions. So the money that if we get into a lawsuit, that money that we're talking about is going to be pennies. And I think Mr. Spence will tell you a federal lawsuit can run easily into the $100,000, even if we win. We want to be in the best positions possible.
So
Chief.
there are 10, you say there are 10 agencies the size of Smithfield across North Carolina
Yes,
that are accredited?
that's correct.
What, now, as far as personnel, I think I read something about a program manager,
Yes,
something. Is that going to be a cost to the town?
that's going to have to be a reorganization within my own department.
Would that be taking an officer off the street to administer this program?
No.
Chief, I understand that you're not coming to us asking for any money.
That's correct.
There's no expenditure being requested. I just want to be clear on that. And number two, what's the approximate balance in that forfeiture account?
Today,
Uh-huh.
actually, I have that information here. I thought it may come up. Let me be accurate. We have $16,600 currently budgeted to spend out of the forfeiture account. So not counting that money, we have about $31,000.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions for the chief?
Chief,
Sir?
could you restate the statistic you mentioned earlier about the decrease in crime in Smithfield? I don't know that
Yes, sir.
it wouldn't hurt for us all to hear it again.
We saw in the calendar year 2010 a 16.5% decrease in reported crimes in Smithfield. 16.5% decrease over the previous year, 2009.
And that's the largest drop in the state.
Yes, the largest percentage drop in the state, yes. There was also an article in the News and Observer that talked about that, talked about Johnston County being the largest decrease in the state of North Carolina, and we are the largest decrease in Johnston County.
Thank you, Chief.
I'd like to commend you and your officers on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the chief?
Could you, I think it's a good idea. I thought it was a good idea last time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, don't take my questions as being negative towards this program, okay? I'm simply asking the questions because it is an unbudgeted item. I understand that we have forfeiture money, but what other items are we paying for out of that forfeiture money? I know what the balance is now, but what do we normally get, as far as?
It varies.
Right?
I was in Mr. Spence's office earlier last week, having him sign some what they call DAG 71 forms for the DEA. If those go through, we're going to see an additional about $9,000 coming in on top of what we already have. But it just depends. Right now, we're doing a lot of work with the federal government on drug cases. When we do that, we tend to have more seizures. If we're out on the highway doing interdiction, we seem to find more seizures. If we don't have the personnel to do that, then we're not out there. So it's just very fluid. There's just no way to know.
Can you speak a bit on, you stated that this program manager, and I guess that is a requirement for this, is that correct?
That's correct.
So can you speak a little bit more toward what you were stating as far as a reorganization? I mean, I want to make sure that number one, we're not taking an officer off the street. Okay. Number two, your reorganization is going to be not going to be a reorganization for this program, and then 6 months later, you're before the council asking for a new position to backfill for something else. Can you elaborate on what your plan is?
Sure.
For that?
The plan is, as it stands today, is to have our support services director, who is Lynn Kirby, who is a civilian employee, be our accreditation manager. She would go to all the training, do all the necessary paperwork and policy authoring that needs to be done. All of her duties that she is currently doing outside of payroll would be moved to Captain Gentry, who currently is doing policy revision, so that would be removed from him and given to Lynn Kirby. Of course, we're still hopeful, as we talked about in budget session, that the two positions that are frozen will come back to us at some point. But there is no new positions being asked for.
And then you mentioned training for Lynn. There's money for her training. Does this forfeiture money cover that as well?
It does.
Okay.
Any other questions? Having been part of an accreditation process years ago, I know how valuable this is, and it's a good process and all good questions to make sure we're covering expenditures. But when it comes to raising the bar to our police department. This is a very important process, and it will assist with recognition for that. So, thank you, Chief, for your words. Do we have a motion on this new business? Motion. Okay, we have a motion to allow the request to move forward on the accreditation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we'll move forward. Second item will be I-95 sewer repair and labor contract. Mr. Earl?
I just need to give you a little bit of background as to this project. It's been an ongoing problem since 2009. In April of 2009, we discovered that we had a problem with the sewer line that is under I-95. This problem is inhibiting the flow of the wastewater. It's causing everything, upstream to back up. We inserted our camera in this pipe, around April, May of 2009, and we found that there was a clay sewer line which had become misaligned or offset. We know of one location. We could not get our camera through to find if there was others, but that one was just enough for us to say, hey, we got a problem. Because of the nature of I-75 and, of I-95, DOT was very, very involved in what we did there. We had several proposals, several ideas, and they were just not hard to deal with, but they were just very careful as what they would allow. And I would, you would imagine that would be the case. So it's taken a couple years just to get to the point that we had something to present. Finally, all parties settled on 3 options, and I think option 3, which is in your packet, was the one that we felt like that would suit the town of Smithfield best. We also had some easement problems there that we could not get, so we were limited in our actual choices. Basically, it will entail 310 linear feet of 24-inch steel encasement and 365 linear feet of sewer pipe. We bid this project this past spring with the knowledge that we probably would not have enough funds to do it, but we needed some numbers to get additional funding during our budgetary process. We contacted these low bidders a few weeks ago, and they're still up to honoring their bid. So that was good. We will not have to rebid the project. And on your action forms, the information that I provide there pertains to a base bid. We did bid an alternate. We did bid an alternate bid, which was installing a 10-inch as opposed to an 8-inch. We elected there again during the budgetary process to stay with the 8-inch because our instructions from the board was to hold the line, don't spend any more than you needed, and we did that. That was how we came up to stay with the 8-inch pipe. In all likelihood, that 8-inch pipe will be there for years, and we will not need a larger pipe. But obviously, there is always the possibility that would happen if something larger moved in over East 70. Then there would be a possibility of needing a larger pipe. When Mr. Gobble reviewed the form, he wanted me to pass this information along to you, to advise you that we did bid an alternate bid, and that given least restrictive time as far as money, then we would probably have pursued the 10-inch as opposed to the 8-inch. But he wanted me to make sure that I advised everyone that there was an alternative, which was the 10-inch. And if you had any comments or had any interest in pursuing that direction, then we could, of course. Do you all have any questions as to the sewer line, its purpose, or the difference between an 8 and a 10-inch? Is that?
What was the difference between the 8 and the 10-inch?
It's
monetarily, or
it's less than 9,000. I think it was like 8,600, something like that. That is the difference between the bids and also reworking the permit and little engineering work. So we have the funds in contingency to go that direction, but, you know, there again, it's just, the direction we assumed from the start was the base bid. But there is the option of going with a larger pipe that might save us money down the road with the 10-inch. You know, if there's any questions or concerns on that?
What's the difference in the flow from an 8 to a 10?
Actually, I have that. An 8-inch will flow about 120 gallons per minute, and a 10-inch about 220 gallons per minute, based on that slope, which is kind of a flat slope across the interstate. So right now the 8-inch is carrying it, but should something come up, you know, in the future, then that pipe would be there, in essence.
Mr. Ogden, you have a question?
So what would that entail if we, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we found out that we needed more flow? How much, what do you have to do? Go back and put another pipe in? Or?
If we stayed with the 8-inch, we would, if we needed a 10-inch, we would have to remove that 8-inch and just insert a 10. It will be an encasement. It will be like you would have to bore, you know, another line, but you would have the expense of taking that pipe out and inserting another.
What was wrong with option number 1? Why was that not?
I think option 1 was due to the inability to get easement. We approached that property owner about you know, offsetting that line and you know, setting a manhole and crossing a pretty clean bore. The property owner felt like that he would let us install anything we needed and wanted, but he would not sign an easement. And while he had good intentions, maybe the people behind him wouldn't. So I think it's just dangerous to put anything there without an easement.
My question would be for the board, if we're anticipating moving forward in growth for the difference in the expenditure of the 10 and the 8 with that amount of flow, while we're in there, now this just is my opinion, the board has the choice. I see a big benefit of a 10-inch pipe versus an 8-inch flow. That's just my thinking, but if we have to go back and retrofit something that we've already gone and had to bore, I just want the board to consider the advancement of growth in that area.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. That's exactly what I was thinking. I think we need to think about our future growth. We don't have many areas that we can grow, and that is one area that has been slated for growth. And just like what Mr. Williams was talking about earlier, I know it's talking about runoff, but still, you know, the reason we have the problems over in the east section is because of the growth. And if there had been a little more planning on the front end, we might not have these problems today that Mr. Williams was speaking to earlier. So it'd be my recommendation at the cost, since the additional cost is included in the contingency portion, and we do have monies budgeted, is that correct, to cover it? It'd be my recommendation that we go with a larger piping.
Mr. Harris?
I want to ask, what is our standard? You know, why did we start with 8-inch and now want to talk 10-inch? And are we using 10-inch pipes all over Smithfield?
No, most of our mains like that are 8-inch. That's really, an 8-inch is the smallest thing that we install is that really would qualify as being a main, if that's your question.
I'm just trying to figure out if we've got 8-inch all over town, why do we need 10-inch out there? Or do we have 10-inch all over town?
The advantage it would be at this time. Now, in the future, it might prove to be, but at this time, it would just you would still have an 8-inch pipe either entering the 10 and an 8-inch pipe at the end of it, but it would eliminate the having to change that pipe out if that pipe was ever upsized.
Under I-95?
Or just the entire length of it. The pipe would already be there. There will be some savings there.
Well, keep in mind that the $1,470 contingency. If you spend that on a pipe and you have something go wrong during the bore or something that wasn't anticipated by the engineer or the contractor, you have no funds to fall back on. So, it makes sense to put the 10, but that uses up all of your budget.
There'll be like 5,000 left. It would eat up all of it but $5,000.
I may withdraw my recommendation then.
Well, funding was the reason that we went with 8 inch to begin with. We tried to hold the line as tight as we could, and that was our.
Well, I guess let me ask it a different way in light of Richard. That was actually a very good point, one I did not consider. We don't have any growth right now in that area, but say for instance we had a couple of subdivision pop up over there, commercial and or residential. Will the 8-inch pipe? I know this is a loaded question because it depends on the size of development. I know, but I don't see any booming activity there in the next recent future. But there may be some. In your opinion, will the 8-inch pipe do what we need to do to accommodate future growth?
It's going to take something fairly large to that would.
We had an industry come in that wanted to locate over
Something
there.
that a big entrance fee to come in that would pose a problem. A subdivision of, small subdivision, it would not be, it wouldn't be noticed.
If a big box store or a center would mirror what we have on this side of 95 go there,
Then you would
you'd
start
have to have a
looking at
10-inch, correct?
That 10 inch at that point would probably be very beneficial. There's no good answer for that.
Yeah.
If nothing develops there in the next 20 years, then what we have there is.
Can I ask?
Keep in mind that, all of the pipe downstream would have to be changed. So it could be 1,000 feet or it could be 5,000 feet.
Because it's connecting to
Pipe
an
of
8
work,
inch. It's
you'll have to
reducing
change
down
it.
to 8 inch anyway. Is that correct?
There would still be an 8 inch on either side of it.
Can I ask, I see Chris Johnson, hate to put you on the spot, Chris, but from an economic development standpoint, just would like to get your opinion from your standpoint. Do you see a benefit right now putting in the 10 inch, given the fact that it's going to have to reduce down anyway?
I don't know if this feeds into the Hill property or would serve the Hill property if that runs down Brighton Road.
No, though this is on, across the Interstate 95, around the Burger King, that area there. It's the east of town.
Go across the Smith property. Well, the Hill property is right next to it.
Right.
You guys is certified.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so the more, in my opinion, the more sewer capacity that you can have, the better off you are in the long run. And then to answer your question about tying in existing pipes, sometimes the developer is responsible for tying into something they would be responsible necessarily to go and maintain the pipe. But in my opinion, it is big problem.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure in thinking on that? Do they want to stay with the 8, allow this contract, or modify and go with the 10?
I make a motion, we stick with the 8 and go that route.
Okay. Got a motion on the floor? You have a second, Mr. Charles? Okay. Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Stay with 8 inch and proceed forward. Thank you, sir. Okay, item number 3, update on the deer hunting. Says CL, but I believe Richard's going to take care of that for us.
Take care of that this evening. I believe there was some discussion at one of the prior meetings where you asked the chief and his officers to do some testing on bows to look at the distance. And I think what CL came up with was as long as the person was in a stand, and if you look at the proposed ordinance, I think his recommendation was the stand be no less than 8 feet above the ground. As long as the person was shooting the bow in a downward position, you shouldn't have any problems. And basically, it's a very simple ordinance that says you can hunt during that season that's in compliance with the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission regulations for the eastern deer season. And basically says you have to be 8 feet off the ground in a stand, and that hunting shall be on private property only, and that you be at least 150 feet from any adjoining property lines. And I don't think there was any specific reason for the 150 feet. I think that's just, a specific number he came up with. And also that it not be done on any town property. So, we tried to make it very simple where it wouldn't create a lot of questions or problems. I think his recommendation at that time was the adoption of the ordinance so that you could have the season, I guess, next January when it opens again.
Chief, y'all have comments on this?
I don't have a lot of comments, Mayor. I'm gonna leave this to, Lieutenant Shepard here. He did a lot of research on this, as requested by the council, as to how far arrows go and some of the dangers involved with that. He's an avid hunter. I am not. As I've made it known to the board, I don't do a whole lot of this type of thing, so I'm not an expert. So I'll leave it to him, and he's in a much better position to answer any questions you might have in this regard.
Okay, based on the ordinance that we have, are there any questions, or do you like some opening comments or what have you?
The only comments that I'd like to make to the board, outside of thanking you for allowing me to be here tonight, is the scientific study that I did was from a height of 7 foot, not of 8 foot. The key figures to remember here is if an individual is shooting a bow in a downward angle, he has the earth as a backstop. If that arrow's traveling down, it's more likely to stick into the ground unless it hits a hard object such as a large rock or a ricochet off of a tree limb or something else along those lines. The average deer that is shot with a bow is in the area of 15 feet from the position of the tree and or the stand that the shooter is in. At a 15, I'm sorry, not 15 feet, but 15 yards. At a 15 yards, the distance of 15 yards, the degree is 17 degrees down angle. As the shooter increases that distance from the stand itself, the angle is obviously going to be decreased. Hunting from an elevated position is going to be much safer for the occupants in and around the area of the hunting site. The only dangers that is added is to the hunter himself or herself who is climbing a tree or climbing into the stand. However, there is safety harnesses that are available on the market, and I would put that up to the responsibility of the hunter to utilize. To my knowledge, there's no state law saying that they have to utilize those, but it would make the overall hunt safer for those residents and homeowners around the affected area. Outside of that, if you have any other questions, I'll be more than happy to provide you the best answer that I possibly can.
Do we have any questions for the Lieutenant?
My biggest concern with the last draft of this was the ability to shoot from ground level, and now that that's been taken out, I don't think I have any more concerns. I want to thank Chief and yourself and the other members for looking at this, Perry for his work on this issue. It's something that's definitely needed. Mayor, I know you can contest to it around your house. I saw one night before last in my neighbor's yard, and I mean, they're just so abundant around. And the thing is he was as skinny, or she was as skinny as his microphone. I mean, simply wasn't getting enough to eat, and that's why they're coming out of that area that could be diseased and so forth. So definitely think we need to do something to try to control that population. And again, that was my biggest concern, was being able to shoot from ground level. So I want to thank you for doing it.
Okay. Any other comments on the ordinance? Are we ready to adopt the ordinance 471?
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 471.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed? The adoption is made. Maybe we'll get some resolve on our friends of the forest. Okay, moving along to the consideration of a three-way stop at North and Second Street. Anyone who's traveled this area and those who live in that area know that it is very cumbersome to come in and out with the amount of traffic as well as the speed that comes through that area. We've done some research and looking at that, and we're looking at potentially adding the location as proposed here. And I'm gonna turn this over to the manager and Paul to maybe give us a little discussion on that if you can. Richard?
Okay, Paul, if you don't mind pointing out on the map where these locations are. And Chief, I might want you to make a comment on that.
Second Street, the water plant is just off the top of the photograph. This is North Street, and the proposed three-way stop, it'd be a stop sign on Second Street, a stop sign on North Street, and then a stop sign coming up from Hospital Drive onto Second Street. Three-way stop.
There's already a stop sign on North Street, so actually we'd be adding Second Street stop signs.
Chief, if you would, who has right-of-ways when you stop at a three-way stop sign? I always wonder, who gets to go first when you stop at the three-way stop sign?
We did a little bit of research at this intersection, doesn't look good. Currently, there is a stop sign on North Street here for traffic traveling on North approaching Second. This is a throughway here, so these two would be new stop signs. We had, in a 24-hour period, we had about a little over 2,600 vehicles pass heading and we had more than that traveling the opposite direction, heading about 3,800 heading the opposite direction.
Wow.
We've got a lot of traffic going on this road. I don't personally know the answer here because I don't really know the problem or why this was brought up in the first place. I have a concern that whenever you put up stop signs like this at an intersection that's long not been a stop sign, it's been a thoroughfare, that it will create a couple of accidents. People that aren't paying attention are just used to driving this with their eyes shut, and they're gonna blow that intersection and go somebody coming off North Street. We don't have a lot of accidents at this intersection now, but this traffic coming off the hospital is growing, and that's a potential problem.
I think there was some discussion about with DOT that they had recommended we
My
not do anything
understanding
at this
is
time.
that DOT's recommendation, and Paul, if I'm not being accurate, let me know, but my understanding was that the Department of Transportation suggested that we not change the format of the intersection there, that we leave it alone until such time as the 70 bridge is taken out and put back in so that we have the bridge operating, plus we have the Booker Dairy extension in operation, and we can see how those two things working together change the traffic patterns in this area. And then make a determination, one, if it's needed, and if we would want to move forward.
Chief, how did this come about? We had one person call, we had the whole community call, what did we have?
I was tasked to look at this by the acting manager, Gobble. Other than that, I don't have a lot of background information. The information went through him to me. I haven't talked to anyone from that area other than tonight I had a brief conversation with this lady here that lives at that intersection. That's the only person I've talked to.
I had asked CL how to calm the traffic speed on Second Street, and this was a suggestion. That's it.
Okay. That's
We have
not
a problem.
information.
There's not a problem as far as I know on North Street, but Second Street, we do have a problem with excessive speed.
Well, I can tell you our traffic study showed speed limit there is 25 miles an hour, and we usually don't write tickets until they're going at least 10 over or maybe even a little more than that. So traffic heading towards Hospital Road in a 24-hour period, we had 7 vehicles traveling over 35. So we didn't have a lot of vehicles traveling that way. We had 100, a little over 100 traveling the opposite direction that were going over 35. So we probably do need to do some increased enforcement in the opposite direction. That would be coming off of Hospital Road and coming around towards the downtown. Seem to be moving faster in that direction.
Has there been any consideration to actually closing that section of Hospital Road? I mean,
That's,
have we
none
talked
none
about
that I know of.
CL talked about that, I don't know that that's a dedicated street.
It is not. I looked up, for my information, I looked up through planning, and it's not on the Powell reimbursement sheet, I don't think, Paul. I may be corrected. But if you guys who've been here a long time, Mr. Baldwin, Bill, those others have been here a long time, but no, this used to be just simply a path that was not, and that was just paved later. It is not a regulated street in distance and or width, even as it stands today. In that curve in the back part of the Hospital Road extension little area there, that is a very dangerous, if you ever come into that curve right there where it joins the park entrance on that gate, I would dare say that's not hardly enough for two cars to pass, although they're passing now. The idea originally was to shut that whole area off completely from one end to the other, use it only for service entry. But somehow, sometime during this later years, it was opened up as a free thoroughfare, especially when the park was closed, when it used to be a soccer field down there where the town garage is now. Then it was opened up for entry back and forth. DOT went down there and put a light up. That was the next progression in step. So it was simply left as a thoroughfare, as a cut-through. That's where it stands now. On the one stop sign on the other side where there's one already at north, right there close to the Lampy's driveway, there was a stop sign there once upon a time. And it stopped it on north and as it did coming this way. It was a free throw going the other direction. There was at one time, just giving you history because I went back and looked at all this, there was gates, big iron gates that were there at one time to completely shut them off and open them up for emergency traffic as well as for entry to the water plant and to any other access for deliveries. The last time it was opened up, it was simply opened up. It was not regulated. It was not striped. It was not curbed. It was simply opened up as a thoroughfare. That's where it's at today. So there are some improvements we need to make in that area, in my opinion, especially for traffic flow, but also for speed and for danger coming through that area. Now, what that is, whether it's stop signs, I don't know. But it is a good thought to bring it up. Mr. Branch, you may can add something to it.
I would just like to add that when Chief Scott and I done the study, it was not including school traffic. So you're going to see that intensify when school's in session in the mornings and afternoons. And then we got to take in consideration, I wanted to bring to your attention, is that the charter school is going to be an addition on that side of town, so you're going to have even more traffic going through there, especially when the bridge is closed. So I just wanted to throw those ideas toward you.
There'll be less traffic going when the bridge is closed. There will be less traffic.
Yeah.
When school's open, there'll be more. I have a question. If I lived on 2nd Street, I'd want stop signs and I'd want bumps, because how in the world we don't have a lot more accidents over there with Women's Club there and people parking on the road, I don't know. But I hadn't heard from anybody about this, but I see we have someone I do know out there who lives right on that intersection, and I'm assuming that you are for this. Well, and that's the reason I'm.
Say something. Pam, I think you would find it easier getting out of your driveway because you would be able to take a turn to the south going towards downtown much easier because the traffic is going to be stopped there coming up that street. Now, you may have problems going the other way, but going south, you're going to have an intermittent spacing there of traffic.
short of it as well. So, I guess I'm like the chief, I don't understand why there's not more action that's there now than they do have. Maybe when they see one of these, things that you put up that registers your speed,
We've had them up there.
then that tends to slow people down, okay? But if it's not there, I can promise you, Second Street is becoming a speedway. I mean, they run up to that intersection, Hancock Street as well. It's a straight line from Hancock right to Second Street, and they come up to that intersection, and it is scary. That's all I can say. I would love to see those 2 more stop signs there. At least I could get out of the neighborhood without taking the long way around.
Well, I told Mrs. Lampy that, one consideration is, I would like to see them there too, champ. I'd like to see if it does have a calming effect. If it doesn't, we'll take them down. I mean, it's just that simple. This is not cast in stone.
My issue is to slow it down.
That's my issue.
And I think that's a good idea, and it's something actually that we discussed back when we were talking about the issue of aligning Third Street up. We talked about calming measures on Second Street, but I just haven't heard from any neighbors since that time, and that I'm not sure whether you have or not, Councilman Ogden. That would be my concern of doing something that the majority of the neighbors do not want. And Chap, I see your point, but actually, with that many, in my opinion, with that many cars passing through there a day, the stop signs could actually back traffic up so that it's past Hancock Street, and you'd have a worse time getting out of your on the Second Street, because you'd have so many cars going, what do I do? Who goes now? Who doesn't go now? And then if you got 3,000 cars going through there a day, everybody's trying to decide what to do, and then the traffic could actually back up. Right, exactly. Right.
Well, the bottom line is, what I hate to see is we wait until somebody really gets hurt, sort of like they did on the bridge at the Raleigh-Durham Airport. They took an automobile pulling out in that traffic, and 6 or 7 people in that car died before they put a bridge there. And I hate to see us in the same situation where someone makes a mistake, and typically that can happen, and somebody gets killed. I mean, it's not worth it. I mean, stop signs worth, a human life are worth a whole lot more than somebody pulling out there and getting killed. So, maybe we should put the stop signs.
Okay.
That's just where I'm coming from.
What is the pleasure of the board? What do we want to do?
It'd be my recommendation, and just that, and I certainly understand, I'm not necessarily opposed to the stop signs, but again, I haven't heard, as a councilman at large and representing the entire community, I have not heard from any residents. And I'd like to hear from the residents that this would affect most, to be quite honest with you, before I voted on it. I'm not saying I'm against it.
Well, you've heard from Chap.
Well, I've heard from
You're
Chap.
going to hear from me.
Yeah. And you. And you. I'm sure I will. But I mean, that's just my recommendation. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I just have, we've got the DOT who's saying they're not in favor of it now.
I talked to DOT, and they did not tell me that at all. They said, you can put speed bumps out there, or you can put stop signs, whichever way you want to go. And I don't think speed bumps are the way to go.
See, I would think they would be.
Well,
my opinion.
Living on Vermont, that's right.
Okay. This is not necessarily a public hearing, but I've always broke that, so I'm going to let people speak anyway. So, Ms. Lampy.
It won't take long to figure it out. Yeah, I would like like to see them at Hancock and Second also.
Why not put 2 more stop signs down the street? And that way we make people have to stop. But I am a little afraid that it will back up traffic in our neighborhood. That does happen sometimes when the traffic signal is broken at North and, this is Bridge Street.
Well, maybe it'll convince them to take another way.
Okay.
Take another street.
Again, I'm going to limit this to 2 more because, again, it's not a public hearing, but I'm going to let you speak. Richard, go ahead. Good suggestion.
Well, that won't be a permanent. I mean, we hopefully will be utilizing those police cars other than just sitting somewhere.
Yeah, that's an
But,
expensive solution.
you know, the
Okay.
question I have is, do we need to vote on this?
Yes, I want to vote on it.
I make a motion that we put the stop signs in.
I second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
I will put a caveat, not to the motion, but just as a suggestion, Chief. I put some kind of flagging up there when we do this so that we can make sure, flashing lights, whatever you got to do to make sure people see that in a timely way. Make sure there's as easily transition as we can.
Chief, do you want this as an ordinance? Ordinance requires it be on the table. For some reason, in the wisdom of the legislature, ordinance requires it be on the table for 2 sessions. I can't tell you the reason for that, but if you want it as an ordinance for ticket purposes or anything? I wouldn't think it would need to be an ordinance. I would think the town would have the right to put up stop signs for it wants to. But you would be the person that would know more about that. We certainly would want to be able to issue citations there.
Well, if you issue citations, I think when you go to court, they're gonna ask to see a section of your chapter that it's in.
I'm sure that unless somebody listens to this and somebody puts it on the web, nobody will think of that on the bar. But I just brought that up, so maybe. I really don't think anybody's going to figure that out, but that is an issue.
All right, let's move forward. Item 5, consideration of implementation of the probationary review and pay. Mr. Richard, I'm going to recognize you for that, please.
One of the things you asked for at your previous meeting was a summary of what was budgeted for salaries by department. And also wanted to know how that compared to the actual number of positions that were currently funded. So we went back through the budget and I obtained a copy of each departmental salaries list and tried to determine, if all the salaries remain for the current fiscal year, what the current costs would be, and then compared that to what was actually in the budget. And I think the main question was most of the proposed probationary increases were in the chief's budget. And if you look at the police department budget, their current salaries with all the officers they have right now, I think there were 3 positions frozen, 2 positions frozen, and with all the positions that are currently there now, with no change, that would cost you $1,925,042.84. The actual budget has $1,869,736. Now, my understanding was that there was an assumption that portion of that difference would be made up as vacancies occurred during the year. So if there was a vacancy, that vacancy would not be filled. So, if you had 1, 2, 3, or 4 vacancies during the year, that difference, it could possibly be made up. If you don't have any vacancies, then you still got a shortfall in that particular department. And I think of all these, 6 increases there, I think either 4 or 5 fell, within that one department. And I think the question was, were there funds in the budget to cover the proposed probationary increases? And they would be in all of the departments except, police. So, I think there has been some discussion based on your current personnel policy that says once an employee completes their 6 months probationary period, they are entitled, or they are to be given the 5% salary increase. If it's if an employee is hired and they never worked for local government before, at the end of the probationary period, they had to become a member of the state and local government retirement system. So after the 6 months, they get a 5% increase, and they have to start contributing 6% of their salary into the local government retirement systems. Even then, they actually see, in their take-home pay, they see about a 1% decrease. But the question before you this evening is, we have all these listed for you. It looks like there's about 11 that were not given the probationary increases. We went back and calculated the numbers from the time their 6 months ended through the next payroll. And the first item there is $9,534. For the EMS is $2,588, and for public utilities, water and sewer is $2,813. And as I mentioned, the EMS and the water and sewer would have enough in the current budget to cover those, but the police department does not. And I think there was some discussion as the budget process got near the end. I think there was an additional $35,000 taken out of the chief's budget to cover someone that was moved, I think, to the public works department, so that you wouldn't have to let that person go.
Richard, I think one of my questions was the other night was that by not filling the manager's position until whenever we do it, or the human resources until we do it, payroll clerk until we do it, how much money will we be saving by not paying those salaries out? That was my main question, I think, the other night. If you misunderstood it, or...
No, I would just estimate it'd be somewhere probably in the $10,000 to $15,000 range within the next couple of months. One thing we did discover in the finance office, there was a staff member that was moved, I think, to the electric fund, and her salary's covered in the electric fund, but it's also still covered in the finance budget. So you've got about, $45,000 there that just not going to be needed.
Yeah, I think my question was then...
You've got funds to cover it if but you'd have to move it from a certain department to another department.
I still say my question was, how much money, if we don't hire a city manager until, what's a good time? November?
First of the year, I would think.
I mean, that's money. I know we paying you a salary, but still, would be the amount that we'd be paying a full time.
Right.
And to me, that money, we could use that to pay these ladder positions or step positions and the probationary money. Then, like we said, if you want to change that, the policy in our handbook, then vote to change it, but you can't stop it now. I mean, these people are signed up for this, expecting to get it. The ladder's position in the police and fire, EMS, and especially those people that have started it already. I mean, you can't just tell them that, hey, sorry. But then after these folks go through it and get their raises or whatever, then if you want to stop it, then vote on it and stop it. But I don't think you can not give them their money that they are entitled to when they signed up to work for the town of Smithfield. And plus, we improved the ladder steps for the fire, EMS, and police. So unless you want to change it, I mean, it's there. Council voted on it. It was, everybody voted for it. If you want to change it later, change it.
And I would tend to agree with Councilman Jordan. But I have to tell you, I'm very concerned. We've approved a budget 30 days ago, and I find out that we have two departments that we didn't get an accurate figure on. And I see here where the police department, we budgeted $1.869 million and change, and the actual salaries at the time we approved the budget was $1.925. And in the EMS department, we budgeted $705,000 and change, and the actual salaries were $716,000. And that's unacceptable. I don't know how something like that happens. I don't know how we got that bad information. But we certainly don't need these employees to suffer the consequences of bad management, which I think, based on what I see, that it's the case. And, you know, I'm embarrassed that we have to talk about this in front of the citizens, but we got some bad information from somebody, and I don't know where that was. Based on my conversations this week, there's only one department, which I think you said tonight, that doesn't have the money allocated for the salaries. But under the EMS department, how can that be if we're showing a budget of 705 and we're already at 716?
I think on that one, a portion of that salary will actually come out of overtime because of the hours they work. It's kind of a complex.
So
salaries. I think that was fine. I think even though your
don't we have a line item, Patrick, that shows overtime and a line item that shows salaries, and are they lumping the two in together on this figure?
The way EMS is treated is a little different than fire and police in that they are not subject to the Fair Labor Standards Act exemption. And so they have to be paid as 40-hour-week employees. So a portion of their salary, although they work a 24-hour rotating shift where they work 24 hours on, 24 off for 3 days, and they come back for 24. So what happens is, in a month's time, they work 48 hours, 48 hours, 48 hours, and 24 hours. So they have a short week one time a month. 3 weeks out of the month, they're paid 8 hours overtime at time and a half. That keeps us in compliance with Fair Labor Standards. So a portion of their salary, although it's calculated as the 8 hours overtime, is shown in the overtime line item. So it shows your base salary is going to look a little different, but when you look at that, look at the next line down, it shows your overtime, and that's where a portion of their salary comes from, because it is factored in overtime. It's not.
So you are lumping those in together on this figure? Is that what I understand? Or you are not?
The 705 should be enough to cover all of his salaries.
Cover their base salary.
The other 16, or the other.
It will come out of the overtime
Dollars
cost.
will actually come out of the overtime.
That's why it makes your numbers look. This is the first time that we've actually separated it, if you recall, in which I like it. It's a good way to look and see what's coming out of overtime and what's not. In most departments, overtime is something that's controllable. Right. In EMS, it is not controllable to a great degree because it's factored in and built in. Does that explain it?
Kind of.
Okay. I'll keep going.
You know, my thoughts, gentlemen, would be that we make a motion to approve these, but ask the departments to work within their budget to find these funds. That would be 30 days into the budget. We've got a line item budget. We're told that everybody has the money there already. So my motion would be that we approve these raises, but with no additional funds for these departments, and they find the money within that department, within that budget line.
Is that feasible? Yeah. All right. Did you hear that?
Well, I asked you a question, Chief Scott. Why, we're 30 days into this budget, and why were we not given a budget that was correct? Because when I look at these, a lot of these were in the prior year, and a lot of these were coming up And why did not we get a budget that we don't have to change in 30 days?
That's a question that I'll try to answer as best I can. The budget that was presented by the police department had adequate funds to cover all the expenses that you're talking about, including the career ladder. And the point, we submitted that budget, we were ordered to go back and make an 8.5% reduction in our budget. I have the biggest police department, biggest budget in the town. That's a big cut. We cut where we could, but we left the 5% in the budget. From the time it went from the town manager to you, additional funds were cut. I didn't cut them. I sat in front of this board at the meeting, and I told everyone, except for you, Councilman, because you were not there, that there was more than 2 positions cut out of this budget. There were 4 positions cut out of this budget, and nobody asked about it. I didn't cut them. Town manager cut the funds from the budget for 2 additional spots. I have no control over that.
But you were instructed to live with this budget that you got.
No, sir. When I found out that the town manager had cut those funds, I called him the very next day and I spoke to him on the telephone to find out how I was supposed to live within that line item. And the way he explained it to me was that there would be other vacancies in the town that would be created throughout the year, and those positions would be frozen, and money could then be moved back into the police department line item to pay for wages.
I guess my question is if we had a budget that that cut 4 positions, or have 4 positions been, I know 2 have been frozen, what about the other 2 that the manager stated had to be cut? Have they been cut?
That's not what he stated. What he stated was...
Well, I'm talking about, you had mentioned, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
The manager may not, but during the budget session, I guess you had mentioned that 4 positions had been cut from that line.
No, what I mentioned was 2 positions were frozen, but there was not funding for 4 positions in the budget.
Right.
There was less 2 positions, the equate of 2 full-time positions in the budget that had been removed.
And what, Chief, was any of those new requests for hires,
No.
those 2 that was cut?
No. Those 2 positions that are currently frozen is a law enforcement position that we've had since I arrived here, and a administrative assistant position, which we've had since I arrived.
Any further questions for the Chief?
Barry, do you have a motion on the table?
Well, what I hope he would wait, I looked at, the public utility and water service. I see these people are not due for their increase until November. Why is that?
That's when their probationary period comes up.
Yes, when their 6 months.
That's when their 6 months comes up.
You mean, they was actually working and they got promoted and they still on the probation?
As I understand, they're still serving their probationary period. You've got 3 that have not completed their first 6 months yet.
They were?
November.
Are these new hires? But they're new hire, new employees to the town of Smithfield.
Yes.
These people knew,
And what we try to do is go
Crew
through
leaders,
and find all of the employees.
crew leaders is
That
new
would get
hire?
that would have a probationary period ending.
Okay, well, them 2 guys you promoted, you're holding them out to November before you give them a raise?
They have just recently received their promotion. They assumed those positions, I don't know, probably June, but they have just now received their increase.
Oh, they have already received their increases in pay, the 5% increase?
But that's not a probationary.
No, but, okay, I was just wondering, it's confusing here, it say public works, and, when I see it, it looks like you're saying you're holding them out to November before you give them their increases. The crew leaders is not gonna be here a lot, they're gonna get their increase. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, that's all right, I
Okay,
understand.
we have a motion on the floor. Mr. Harris, would you restate your motion if you remember,
I made a motion that we approve these pay raises, but not give any more funding and let the department heads find the money within their department.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion? Failing to hear the second on the motion. Do I have any?
I got a motion.
Okay, so yes.
I got a motion that we, if the department heads can find the money in their budget, to do this, let them do it. If not, we take the money that we're gonna be saving, from the town manager, human resources, and use that money to pay the difference.
Okay, we have that motion on the floor. Do I have a second on that motion?
What you're saying, you're not trying to budget any more money, but to find the money that's already.
We find the money in the,
Overall budget.
overall budget in the government, that we're not using that money, to, like I said, the all amount to pay until we get a new city manager in, or new resources in, and, we got that money there, that we can use that to do it.
I second that.
But we don't increase it.
That's correct.
No, just to find the money to pay the ladder, the probationary folks, and then, like I said, after this is done, those that are working on it and completed it. We're not gonna stop them, or I'm not gonna stop them. That's working on it right now. They're halfway through it, whatever, we say, no. But to finish that, then if the council wants to stop the ladder, the probationary period, then you bring that up at a different time. But right now, we need to pay these folks what are entitled to what they signed up for.
I second your motion.
We have a motion and a second. There's a
Discussion.
discussion.
Did I hear correctly, Mr. Manager, that we had a salary in the finance department that was budgeted for this budget cycle, that has been transferred to another department? So essentially, we've got, what was that figure again that you mentioned? So we have about $45,000, right? Or we don't?
Yes.
Okay, but we have enough in our current budget that we're not going to have to increase our overall budget to cover the cost. Okay, I'm of the opinion that I support Councilmember Jordan's motion. However, I would like for you to consider a friendly amendment to that and state that as of tonight, that no additional probationary period raises or career ladder raises be granted, except for those who are already eligible and those who are currently working on their certifications, until such time that we have a chance to amend our policies or until further notice from the council.
You're gonna have to change your handbook then.
Well, no, we make a motion tonight that.
Well, the motion's got to adhere just to these people that it affected. The policy still stands until we change the policy.
Right.
So this motion will only adhere to those of reference in this motion.
Right, so I'm asking that, in addition to that, that we temporarily suspend that policy until such further notice.
Mr. Mayor, why don't we vote on Councilman Jordan's motion, and then let Mr. Moore put a motion in.
That's fine, I'll withdraw, okay, no problem.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the original to approve the probationary as well as the ladder increases out of the dollars that were saved. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And the dollars saved were coming out of finance.
dollar we save will come out of general government fund.
Yes, sir. We'll have to bring you an actual budget amendment at your September meeting.
Okay.
Total cost.
Okay, now question, if I may, Mr.
Yes,
Mr. May. This is to the manager and to the city attorney. We can make a motion tonight to suspend such policy, is that correct?
You can make a motion tonight to suspend the policy. Yes. You can make a motion to suspend the whole book.
Okay.
That would have a lot of consequences.
Right. Well, in light of what we are facing tonight, we just were hit with another unknown. I would make a motion that we suspend any probationary pay raises or career ladder raises to any employee who is not currently subject to those conditions. So,
Could we add the wording, if I may?
Sure.
Until the policy is reviewed and or changed?
that's fine.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor on that. Do I have a second to that regard? I'll second. Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, we'll have to have a show of hands. Let's go again. Those in favor, aye. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? Okay. So I guess I'll have to break the vote. Is that what it was? Thank you. Was it 4-3? Thank you. Okay. Further discussion.
And let me ask, can I ask another question?
I have a question as well.
We've approved the line item budget, and anytime we make a change in the line item budget, I would like to have a copy of the revised budget. And as I understand, this is coming out of that money from the finance area, but I would like to have, in a reasonable time, a copy of the revised line item budget, and I think it would be good for all the councilmen to have that also. And I want a clarification on this salary situation with these two departments that are showing a different number than what it shows. And I don't know if this clarified that or not, but I'm still not clear on the salary as opposed to the overtime line. I understand what they both are, but based on what you gave me, it looked like our salary line was not correct when we were given the budget, and that's what I want to know.
We'll give you some further clarification on it. That, you know, Tom, as a point, we're gonna have to bring the budget amendment back to you next month. So you'll have an official copy of the ordinance amendment next month to approve.
I have a question. Who are the members of the committee to look at the employee handbook and make suggested revisions?
Nick and Charles and myself.
Well, why are we, how many meetings have y'all had?
I haven't had any.
Well, why are we revising the employee handbook without the subcommittee and haven't even met one time?
We aren't revising it other than.
We're suspending something that just came before us tonight that poses a problem, so therefore we're putting a halt to it immediately. That's what, until such time that things can be looked at and can change, because we've just hit with something again tonight that we were not aware of. So that's why I made the motion. I mean, because I think that.
Are there any meetings of this subcommittee planned?
We actually met day before yesterday, but we never got on this subject. Well, it was yesterday, and we never got on this subject. But I can assure you that we will meet, and we will have you all information in your hand prior to the next board meeting on the recommendations for the handbook.
Then let me just add to that. I don't think we need, Perry, I understand and I appreciate your diligence, but this is serious business.
You're right.
So let's not rush through it. If you need more than 30 days, you need more than 30 days,
Well,
okay?
we will have met, and we will have to the best of our ability, some recommendations to make on whether this changes need to be made or not.
My only concern, and I think it's admirable that we meet, we do need to make changes. There are a lot of fair labor standards issues here. There are a lot of statutes that have to be complied with. I am not an expert to read that, nor do I think anyone on this committee will be. So we will have to have review of this policy changes prior to any adoption of any change, because we want to make sure we are doing it legally and fairly. And
I agree.
according to the state laws and federal labor
And
law.
I think that's going to take, quite frankly, if it, and I understand you're just going to make some recommendations, but if we're going to rush into this and it's only going to take 30 days, then in my opinion, that's way too quick
Well-
to be dealing with something like this.
Well, you know, one of the problems I see is we got 3 city councilmen that are going to work on this handbook. We already have some other folks that want to give their input. I know Zach asked to be involved in it. Well, if we do that, that's a quorum if we all meet. You've asked to be involved in it. We need to have the city manager involved in it. We need to probably have the city attorney involved in it. And maybe a better suggestion, instead of the 3 of us trying to go through the handbook and bring suggestions to you, maybe the full council needs to deal with this. And we all need to meet together and discuss the handbook. That way, we got everybody in the room together, and we can decide.
My motion was, I know I was talking to Andy about it, because he said, I thought I had said that. I said, yeah, if you want to change it, change it, but I didn't say I was going to vote for it. So I think it's important we have a career step ladder in our police EMS. Now, the probationary one, I'm neutral on that one. If you want to hire the person and start them at a salary, and that's it, fine. But I still think that fire, EMS, police needs their career ladders. How are we going to keep our good employees? I mean, hell, we train them to leave now. We take away their incentives. It just don't make sense.
Require them to stay here for at least 2 years, or they pay the money back is one incentive for them to stay. But, Mr. Manager, I would request that the information on the folks that are, the employees that are already midstream their career ladder, i.e. that are already taking training and so forth and are up for that we get that information, say, in the next, prior to the next meeting, I would say. Is that reasonable?
Yes, sir.
Department heads should know that information. Thank you.
Any further discussion? We have one last item on this, and then we'll move very quickly to the manager and mayor's reports. We have it's amended on number 6, a grant request from the Governor Highway Commission. Chief Scott, if you'd come forward, please, and discuss that with us.
Thank you, Mayor. The request in front of you is to allow the police department to submit a grant through the Governor's Traffic Highway Safety Commission for the purchase of 4 video cameras for our squad cars. In January, I came before you and asked to spend forfeiture monies on 2 cameras, and you approved that, and I appreciated that. This possibility of this grant came up between that time and the time that we going to purchase the cameras, so I waited to purchase those cameras to see if this might come to fruition, and it has. It's just given notice on Monday that this came up, and we have to submit the grant by the end of this month. What it would do is allow us to use that money, that $11,000 plus that was already approved in January to purchase 2 cameras as a match to a grant through the Governor's Traffic Highway Safety Commission to purchase 4 cameras for a 50% match, so we can get 4 for the price of 2. So my request tonight is to ask permission to submit that grant.
Okay, you've heard the request from the chief and the resolution. I have that before me here, I think, and something we can fill out and attest to if that's the pleasure of the board. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? I'll be glad to sign that whenever we get it put together. Okay, moving over to the second page under Mayor's Report, I just have a few items I'd like to discuss. At the last meeting, we talked about having a public forum on August the 16th to have the citizens to come in to discuss their ideas of what they would like to see as a manager. The board at that time asked that we sort of advertise this as an invitation, and we have. We've put it on the PEG channel, our web page, and WTSB, I believe, is going to print this for us. It looks like an invitation. There's also information attached to it of what the job description generally involves, and so that they can have some education before they come to the meeting. We will have it August 16th at 7 o'clock here in this auditorium. The Aquatic Center has got some good news to report to us, and I wanted Tim to make sure he came and reported that to us. Tim, if you'll just stand right there and give us a little synopsis of what you've seen in the last month, budget-wise. Thank you, Tim. It's really important that we have, we've come into our actually operational dollars for the center, and that is good news. As we work on our debt ratio with that, we'll hope that comes down as well as we have fundraisers or what have you, but it is good to get into the operational dollars.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes, sir, please.
I'm sorry, I know we're short on time, but Tim, I was out there this weekend, and I was amazed at the number of people out there Saturday. I think that was this past weekend at that swim meet. How many swimmers do you recall, or do you know how many you had registered? It was a really good sight. It had the tent city set up out there, and I guess these were from all over the county or state or both. Okay.
We also just completed the state tournament. Mr. Harris was out there with me. We did the opening there. We had Little League Tar Heel State tournament. A lot of people. It was good reflection on the community in Smithfield, and I was excited to be out there. It was kind of hot, but we had a good time.
Mayor, I'd like to add something while we're on the subject of the rec department and SRAC. I want to remind you that we're meeting now every Friday morning at 8 o'clock, as you can be available to help with the Friends of the Park toward their October 13th gala event. It will be held at SRAC. It's a fundraiser for Friends of the Park.